Dennis, we're up at the hour, it looks like, so we'll give it a few more seconds and we'll get rolling if that sounds good to you.
I like it.
Perfect timing. All right, well, welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining another one of our emerging trends. I'm happy to host and with my partner here, Dennis Pierce. How are you, Dennis?
I'm great, Joe. Thanks. I'm glad to have the opportunity to share.
Yeah, always wonderful to work with you. So Dennis and I are global client executives for Konica Minolta and thought we'd take a quick second to just describe what that role is. We're advisors to leadership within inside of organizations for both business and technology aspects. This is to help the evolving of technology and that digital transformation. And the Emerging Trends series was created to collect data, research, and experience that our teams have gone through in conversations and projects that we work with our clients so that we can share this to the community. And today, what we're going through is what's called technical debt. We're calling this the hidden cost of we'll fix it later. And what this really results to is technical debt is known for a software term, but it's really scoped into your whole tech stack. And it is the silent killer of innovation. And so, from Carl Wiegers, a software development expert, and he's very well known for writing books like Going It Alone and The Pearls of Development, Software Development, and things of that nature. He sums it up like this: the bitterness of poor quality remains long after the sweetness of the meeting schedule has finished and been forgotten. And really, what that means is we strive to get to a goal, and then once we get past the goal, that quality or the things that we left behind are still resonant, and it still plagues us. So for technical debt, our journey today looks like this. First, we're going to do a reality check. Really, what is the cost to organizations? And then we'll move into the perfect storm. Why is it accelerating right now? And it is accelerating. Then we'll go to the strategic framework. And this is a proven approach where companies can identify and then prioritize where the greatest amount of impact, what should you tackle first? And then the best for last is that action plan. These are concepts that can turn the tides and reclaim your technical debt as a competitive advantage, because it is really all about the competitive advantage in today's fast-paced world. How can we stay ahead of the competition? With that being said, Dennis, can you talk to us a bit about what the true cost of technical debt is to organizations?
Sure. The fact is, tech debt, besides a term that gets thrown around somewhat loosely, affects all areas, right? That's both internal and external. You take a look at your infrastructure team or the development organization, all the way through your sales and marketing folks, the folks that are responsible for getting your product, your service out to market. At the same time, you've got reliability. The system, and again, those systems are internal as well as external. But really, I think we mentioned it earlier. The problem with tech debt is the fact that it does suck morale and innovation and creativity from the entire environment. So, beginning with that development team, you look at, engineers, your developers, that infrastructure team is literally tasked about almost half of their time is spent just trying to clean up legacy messes, if you will, bad code, inefficiency. At the same time, that spills into that marketing, the sales and marketing team, trying to meet deadline, trying to compete with others in your industry. You're trying to get the widget out a day sooner, right? A day faster, beat the competition. But that can take up to, 5 times longer if you're still struggling with getting out to market. reliability. This one hits home, I think, with all of us. Just in the last 6 months, I've been hit twice by a major carrier that had an IT outage. One was their fault, the other wasn't. But this is tech debt that affects internal operation and then every one of those end users. And I've been a loyal passenger on their planes for 30 years. And then innovation. This comes back to both software, hardware, and that overall the value of your employees. Because the fact is, if you've got ineffective systems, it spills into daily operations. I would ask everybody on the phone to reflect. I would be willing to bet that today, yesterday, there was something at some point you stopped, you grabbed your head and said, why do we do things this way? Why is it that I have this challenge each and every day, right? So that's how you begin to look at this as to what the true impact or what that true cost is of tech debt.
What I think too, what you're saying here, although we talk about the technology side of it, but it's really the people. That's what it's affecting. Why is it accelerating? And I love this illustration of the bullet train coming out of nowhere, right? And it really comes down to this. There is pressure to move quickly. When we're talking about digital transformation and the speed, competitors are launching features weekly, and it's pushing all of us to move quicker and faster and deliver more on this crazy schedule we find ourselves in. So we're also getting bombarded from technology from every source you can think about it. Whether you're talking about SaaS or cloud services, microservices, even APIs, all of these vendors are demanding upgrades immediately because that's what the tech stack is requiring. And then here's the real herder, the knowledge drain. As the folks that built the infrastructure are moving on, as developers leave and coders leave, they're taking critical system knowledge with them. And that's primarily because the documentation is either incomplete or it's outdated. And that's back to there's always time to fix it later, but never time to do it right the first time. And here's the uncomfortable truth, Dennis, and this is tough, but it's not going away. The question isn't whether you have it or not, it's are you going to manage it strategically or are you going to let it manage you? And that's what's happening. Folks are letting it manage them. So I don't know what you think about that, but there's it in a nutshell to the acceleration.
I think for me, that's the visual of that bullet train. I mean, the cat's out of the bag. AI is enabling us to operate at speeds never before seen, right? But at the same time, I think of technology, this is the age of opportunity. At the same time, here's this 200-mile-an-hour train, yet we're lugging this baggage across the platform, trying to jump on. We don't want to miss the train, but we're also dragging along these legacy platforms and these legacy workflows that are slowing us down. And so, you can't just leave them behind. You've made a significant investment. The question is, how do you optimize and how do you build an infrastructure that supports your operation with an eye on the future and that innovation?
Yeah, it's funny because when you were giving your illustration in my mind, I'm like, I'm running to get on the train, but I forgot my bags that are sitting still on the platform. So really good. So where are we with these pillars of tech debt? How can we talked about the problems, how can we bring some solutions to the table?
Yeah, I like to categorize them in three areas, right? You've got visibility, you can't manage what you can't measure. At the same time, we've all got a million priorities. So what takes precedent over something else? And then there's nothing that gets done without an allocation and a dedication of time, resources, and money. So how do you spend that as wisely as possible, invest that as wisely as possible? So looking at visibility, tech debt, the systems today are so interdependent. There's so much dependence on data, on automation between the different platforms that you've really got to take a holistic approach, take an inventory and understand how do these different systems work. I work with a top cell phone provider that was interviewing their customer service department. This is the 611. You're calling in for support. At any given time, they might have in excess of 24 platforms open. So think of the drain on the hardware, but then also think about if those aren't able to talk to one another effectively, it's a terrible customer experience, right? So prioritization is okay, let's take that example, just keep working from that. So with those 2 dozen, which do we tackle first? Which one is that linchpin, or what is that anchor inside that relay that may have the quickest return on investment, but also the biggest impact to both internal and external customers? That's the important part. If you want to get this done, you've got to have sponsorship. That's where you begin. If you begin this with prioritizing along the lines of those business objectives, those strategic initiatives that you're working on, you are much more successful at getting top level buy-in, and at the same time then feeding into the same story that you're telling Wall Street, to your shareholders. So that's a critical element, and also kind of a lesson learned over the process.
Mhm.
Then allocation. The question is, do you have those resources in-house? Do you look to an outside third party, maybe with expertise? You don't have to go out and source for that. But then as you build these project plans and as you roll these out, you want to set up milestones, those milestones to both measure your progress, celebrate those small wins, make alignment, make adjustments where need be. That's always going to happen along a strike. Business is dynamic. Your customers' needs are changing. So at the same time, you want to continue to measure, see if you need to adjust your plan, your project plan, and celebrate the wins. Celebrate the smallest wins to continue building momentum. That's critical in this process, and shows that dedication of the organization as well as that commitment to the customer.
Well, because again, Dennis, it's not a one and done, it's an ongoing thing. And as you're going through these pillars, I'm thinking in my head of a persona. So from right to left, I feel like allocation, I need a project manager. From prioritization, like you had already said, I need leadership, top leadership to be involved. And then from visibility, it's almost like having another trusted advisor, an outside set of eyes to be able to look into that visibility and see where those systems aren't communicating properly, which now we're rushing to lay AI on top of all of this, and we still have all this tech debt baggage behind us.
Yep.
Really interesting. So here's what framework looks like that we've seen that works. Now, I love the illustration of the clock because time is ticking. It's just flying by us. But this four-phased approach is where we see the goals being met. The first one, to take about a month, a few weeks to really assess what's going on. Where is that debt impacting you? Where are the pain points? Again, with leadership and shareholders, interview them, find out where is this impacting the business, and baseline the matrix for an established plan. Then you move into your strategy. And this should take a couple of months. Don't move too quickly, but you can't sit on, your hands. Prioritizing with the leadership, developing a roadmap that aligns with the desired outcomes, the business goals, and back to that, allocating and planning your resources. Phase three, the execution. And here's where we see the problem. Companies like to jump in and just execute because they want to get it done. This should take multiple months to even a year or greater because this incremental debt is causing the friction. So to think that it's a one and done will kill you. You've got to assess the process and the tools that need improving. The architect and modernization of those initiatives are critical in this. And really, what is your team's capacity? Because no matter how big or small a company is, the resources are always capped at something. And Dennis, we work for a huge company, right? Global with thousands and thousands of employees. And this is what I think is an important stage that gets lost. Sustain. How is this sustainable? It's ongoing, continuous improvement through monitoring and measurement. That is key to this. It isn't, whew, we did it, we're finished. And this is where your culture shift really starts to satisfy your employees and has everybody rowing the boat in the same direction. Regular health checks, excuse me, and course corrections they're not normal, they're absolutely needed. So if a company's not doing it, architect that into the plan. And from a high level overview, Dennis, and we want these to be concise and move quickly, but does that make sense, this four phased approach?
Yeah, I mean, this is an ITIL methodology, and I think every one of them is critical, but I do believe that there's never enough time put into that phase one of the assessment and taking that holistic approach. But I think the biggest drain and the biggest opportunity is in phase four because, sustaining and you've made the conscious decision to implement a new system or new platform, new software, roll it out, and there's no consideration or no lagging indicator then to turn around and say how much time, how much money are we investing in the ongoing maintenance. I think
Yep.
that one of my customers I've worked with in the transportation manufacturing, and this is a top organization, invested heavily in a top three ERP, and went out for a specific module on transportation management, which wasn't in the wheelhouse of this particular ERP provider, right? And they are living with that hangover 7, 8 years later. And they realize they don't want to be the one to blow the whistle and go, this doesn't work. So they are literally trying to make this work. And there's every single day, the pain is share with me best practices, share with me what somebody else is doing, because this is clearly not working, not doing what was, originally intended. So that is the hangover that you live with
Well,
for a long, long time.
so, Dennis, we talked about the problems, where they come from, why the acceleration, and even framework to help companies improve. What can we expect the results, the benefit, if we're going to lean into some of this methodology?
Yep. Just as we said at the very beginning, tech debt touches everyone, affects everyone. And that's where there is ROI in all these different areas. You look at getting to market, faster releases, in 50, 60% faster, right? You look at cost savings. One example, and there's a lot of great material in the follow-up material that we're including articles and abstracts. But the savings is that you've invested hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in many of these platforms. At the same time, 10%, 15%, 20% savings just by engineering or re-engineering how that platform works with your other systems. And this is the one that I think everybody gets excited about is fewer incidents. Those incidents equate to customer satisfaction, internal customers as well as external. Imagine if your ticket system was showing 60, 70, 80% fewer tickets, everybody wins. And now you take that savings of time and money, and where do you reinvest that in the business to continue driving that innovation? And then, I'm big as a coach. I'm big on morale, big on employee sat. And I look at the developer. I live here in the land of tech, right? So those software folks, the technical folks, top technical knowledge workers move from organization to organization. And with that, that's a lot of time, that's a lot of money, a lot of expertise. If you can improve their performance and improve their ability to work and operate more effectively, you've got lower turnover, you've got higher morale, and that equates to everybody's satisfaction. So there are many, because of the fact that everybody's investing heavier and heavier in technology, and all of these systems are communicating with one another. We have a lot of success stories and use cases to share of proven results, so that you feel confident in going in and making that investment of time and resources.
And I'm thinking, Dennis, we talked about the need for documentation. This is where you'll see your wins. If it's
Yep.
documented and it's kept up, then you can kind of lean into that. So here's where we can start today, right? And it's a three-pillared approach to this. Conduct an assessment. And we talked about it a little earlier. Lean on a vendor, outside eyes that you trust, that can help you with the success assessment. You don't know where the problem or where the possible gain is if you don't assess it. And then build a business case. We've already mentioned more than once the need for upper leadership to be involved. In order to take any type of improvement initiative to the plate, it has to have impact with the business desired strategic outcomes. Build that business case, and that vendor should be able to help you. and then ultimately create a roadmap. Without some type of a plan, how do you know when you're going off course a bit or something needs to be adjusted? So change orders are a part of life, but if it's not documented and it's not mapped out, how do you expect to get there? It's all a roll of the dice. So, Dennis, as we're approaching kind of the end here, and we always like to finish a minute or two early and give everybody some time back in their day, what's our final thoughts? What are you thinking here to wrap this thing up?
Well, as always, the time to act is now. And it's one of my favorite proverbs is the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. Hindsight's 2020. We've seen everyone on this call is experiencing the pain of tech debt, right? So let's not be that, we'll fix it later. We can't continue to kick the can because the fact is that bullet train's pulling out of the station. AI is not going to slow things down anytime soon, ever, right?
And
So
Dennis, I hate to interrupt, but I almost think the larger the organization, the more tendency it has to kick the can down the road.
sure, and it's because it feels like an insurmountable task, but it's not. This is the you begin with that approach on the front end of taking a holistic view, and you'd be surprised there is low-hanging fruit. We see it every day in our interactions with our clients, and that's one of those that having a third-party point of view, that objective point of view, come in and share some best practices, what they're seeing, understanding what your current workflow looks like is a great starting point. Talk to your stakeholders internally. Where are they feeling the pain? Where are you personally as an end user or as a consumer of your systems today? Where do you feel the greatest pain? Because simply by acknowledging that is that first step. And then you may be the one that helped to push it over the top that just said, you know what, I think I could get twice as much done with a little attention to this matter. And then begin enlisting who you feel might be a trusted advisor in that space to help.
Consumer knows. Yep.
So again, we want to thank everybody on this call. I mean, your most valuable resource is your time, and you've given us a few minutes of your time. Hopefully you find value in the dialogue and some of the information that we're sharing. You will get a copy of this webinar along with the transcript and the presentation that we've covered today. There's also a framework guide that we've put together, goes through a lot, maybe some thought starters for you on how you begin, implementing some of the framework, beginning the analysis of where do I begin. And then I mentioned the use cases and those abstracts and articles from Gartner, from McKinsey. Those are all third party. We work with the world-class, best-in-class softwares and systems, but taking another third party's assessment of this area and the opportunities inside technical debt is, I think, very valuable. So we're happy that you've taken this time, invested your time today, and we hope that you'll join us in the next episode of Emerging Trends.
Yeah, thanks, Dennis. And again, I want to say thank you as well to Dennis. And there's a whole bunch of people that work in the background to pull the collateral together that's willing to share what they're going through on their projects. We look forward to feedback too. How can we improve? By design, this is supposed to be a very high level, and then the one-on-one or the more drilled down conversation happens after these meetings. So thanks everybody. Dennis, as always, it's a pleasure working with you. It looks to me like we're going to give everybody about 4 minutes back into their day. So I hope you all have a great holiday season. Take care and be well, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.